All right. Julie, any important announcements?
Well, a couple, and I won't want to take too much time, but I just want to make one more plug again for, we are so excited about Purim. The schedule came out last week. It will be coming out again and again in the different emails that go out, but just save the date and spend Purim with us. We also have 3 learning opportunities about Purim before Purim, which will be out in today's email after class. And I just wanted to thank everybody who has donated already for the Jews of the Ukraine. We've raised almost $1,000, and we're going to continue with it until right before Shabbos, and then we want to send it out, Friday morning. So
great. Yeah. Is everybody glued to the news like I am? Do you check your news all the time? I also, like crazy. Like, let's hope for good news. All right, and let's get started. We're in the middle. Last week we also did the first chapter of the second Mishnah, the first Mishnah of the second chapter, and now we're on the second part. So what we spoke about for the most part, I think someone should. It's just someone's got background noise, like a muffled background noise. Maybe it's you, Joel.
I think it's me. Hold on, sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I just heard it. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. No, it's still there. Someone's not muted. All right. I think that's better. Okay. Good. All right. Can you hear me? Put your hand up. Right. Good. Okay. All right. So we're right in the middle of a very important Mishnah, because it's the first Mishnah of the second chapter, and it's the wisdom of the great leader we simply call Rebbe or Rabbi, who was like the rabbi, the quintessential rabbi. He was the creator of the I shouldn't say creator. He culled all the oral transmission from Sinai until his time, at which point he felt that the persecution in diaspora and all the variables were too intense for the oral law to remain oral in nature, oral meaning passed down from rabbi to student in an oral transmission only. And so he codified the Mishnah. And the Mishnah was, of course, the precursor or the basis of the Talmud. So we call Rabbi like the rabbi of Judaism. He was basically the creator of this next era of Judaism, where everything is codified into the Mishnah and the Talmud and learned in the study hall, very much through an oral, through a back and forth relationship between teacher and student, or between chavruta, between learning pairs, but based on a written Talmud. And that's really what Rabbi created. But one of the interesting things was that there's so much to say about him, but just for the sake of our class, he was the transmitter, he really was truly the link from Sinai to his age. And everything that we have today is largely because of him. But he was also very, very kind of a big player in the greater outer world of Roman power. And he played a very, very integral role in securing basic Jewish safeties and securities in a Roman-led empire. So the reason I bring that up is because he was a real Kiddush Hashem. Last week we spoke about the fact that a Jew should always keep in mind that they serve their God and they do what God wants, and God is the ultimate master, but they always have to do it in a way that is na'im, is beautiful, is experienced pleasantly by other people, so that people will say, what a beautiful religion. In the Talmud gives the description, like, how great is the Torah, how great is the rabbi who taught this Torah, how great is the mother who raised this sage. But really, in modern parlance, what it really means is that we should act in such a way that makes that people feel, what a beautiful thing is Judaism. And we know that really, honestly, we talked about Maya Angelou's great quote. Debbie brought it up again. It's such a beautiful quote, but we really know that the way that people experience you pleasantly or something pleasantly is by the way it feels for them. And so Judaism, so we as Jews, we're both rigid in the sense that nobody can control us. Nobody owns us. We don't bow to anybody except our God. And of course, we have the Purim story coming up where we learn of Mordechai, who would only bow to God and would not bow to Haman, and everything that transpired because of Haman's Putin-like, or even, kind of mania, based on Mordechai not refusing to bow down. So we are rigid. Jews are obstinate. They're stubborn. They don't fall for every cultural wave. They don't fall for what's in style in any given era. They stick to their Torah. They stick to their God. But they're also very flexible in always trying to be rigidly Jewish in a way that's pleasant for people and makes people feel beloved and important and heard and validated. And so we walk the line between a certain rigidity and non-compromising commitment, and a sense of always filtering all of our behavior through how will this be experienced by the other person. And the converse is also true, that when we do something negative, when there's like last week, Stephen brought up some big machers, that's Yiddish for like big business people, big philanthropists whose names are on mega buildings and all sorts of things, who got in loads of financial trouble. And what's important to understand about that is there's a word for it. It's called Chilul Hashem. Chilul is you call it a desecration of God's name, but desecration is not what Chilul means. Chilul means like a vacuum. And what that tells us is that when a visibly visible Jew does something that is unethical or immoral or hurtful, the person who experiences that lack of morality or experiences that hurtful behavior doesn't just look askance at the one isolated Jew who made the bad mistake. It grows. Nature abhors a vacuum. It fills every space that it possibly can fill. And before you know it, the person looks down at that person's culture, and then that person looks down at all of Judaism. Oh, those Jews, that's what Jews do. Jews are this, Jews are that. Look, you can see it even positively. I mean, everybody's looking at this Zelensky with such awe. I mean, he's really a tremendous, from Ukraine, can't remember his first name, Zelensky. He's like truly a Kiddush Hashem. What he's doing is not just like a localized good guy or a localized good leader. He's showing us a pathway for heroism. So the point is that goodness grows and creates in others a sense of this is what of wanting to be a part of it, of wanting to connect to it, of ultimately wanting a relationship with God through your behavior. And the converse is also true in the form of Chilul Hashem. And that's what Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi begins with. What is the proper path a person should choose for himself? Serving God and serving others. And that's what we talked about last week. He then goes on. I like to read it in Hebrew because it's so much richer in Hebrew. Okay, so what's the right path a person should choose for himself? Whatever is honorable to the one who chooses it, that really means serving God, and also honorable in the eyes of others. And then he goes on. Behevi zohir b'mitzvah kala kiva chamura. Be as meticulous in the observance of a minor mitzvah as a major one, for you don't know the reward for each mitzvah. It's an enormous mistake for finite people to say this mitzvah is bigger than this mitzvah. Yeah, sure, it looks like Shabbat, kosher. These look like big mitzvahs. And then there are little ones that look like small mitzvahs. But really when we do that, when we kind of look at the infinite God and the system for the good life, for the ethical life, for the godly life that the Almighty bequeaths upon the Jewish people, and a Jewish person in his finitude says, oh, this is big for the infinite, and this is small for the infinite. There is no big and small for the infinite, because really big and small are creations, and they don't apply to an infinite being. There is no before and after. There is no big and small. There is no important and unimportant from the perspective of the infinite creator. And so as Jewish people, and this is very, very relevant for our generation and our grandparents' generation or our parents' generation, because really to a large degree what happened in America is there was a lot of picking and choosing about which mitzvot were relevant and big, and which mitzvot were no longer relevant or small. That is a big problem, because as Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi says, you don't know, you're not in the mind of the infinite. It's imperative that you not apply your own finite terms to an infinite creator. And so we have to be very, very careful. I think the biggest problem is that largely in American Judaism, the mitzvahs became rituals. They became ceremonies, the ceremony of the bar mitzvah, the ritual of Passover, the ritual of tzedakah, the ritual of lighting the menorah. And once they got relegated to the category of a ritual, then human beings would say, this ritual applies to me, this ritual isn't relevant to me. They were basically performances, healthy, good, important, traditional performances, but the mitzvot are not rituals. The mitzvot are the means by which we forge a relationship with our creator. They're literally the strands, if you will, that connect us in an interrelated way with our creator, with the one who created us. Even the word mitzvah, and we've talked about this a lot, but it's so important because sometimes it's a good deed, sometimes it's not. Mitzvot does mean to command. It is a commandment, but tzava really means to bind or to connect, to adhere to. So really the mitzvot are binders. They are the godly methods for which we bond with our creator. So we have to, even if we're not ready to do certain mitzvahs, it's very important that we have the right attitude to the mitzvahs, which is, I really can't say what's relevant, what's small, what's big, what makes no longer makes sense in our culture today, what can't be very important anymore, what's so small, I'll forget about it. While I may not, at my stage of life, be able to do something at any given time, I recognize that my finite mind cannot be the arbitrator of the mitzvahs that I'm learning. So when I'm learning something, I'm learning it with the mentality of, I'm not sure I'm ready for this necessarily, but I recognize that my finite mind really can't wrap around and judge and determine the meaning or the importance of any mitzvah. And that's really the attitude of the mitzvahs. There is something called Tami Mitzvot, and that's really important, that God gives us like tam. A tam means like a taste. That a taste of a mitzvah means that we're able to extract meaning from each mitzvah. For example, tzedakah, we're able to understand that some of the ethical, moral implications of giving tzedakah, or kosher, or Shabbat. We can say we do it largely, one of the reasons we do it is because of this, because of that. But when we say we do it because of this or that, we call that, in Judaism, we call that we call that Tami Mitzvot, the tam of the mitzvah, meaning God gives us a taste. God gives us just a little bit of a taste of the meaning of the infinite mitzvah so that we have motivation to do it, so we can wrap our brains around it. So if we couldn't understand why we do anything at all, we kind of lose resolve. So he gives us a little bit of a taste, and we say, this is some of the reasons we do the mitzvah. But be careful, because when we relegate mitzvahs to a ritual, we say we do it because of this. But the right attitude, or the Jewish attitude, is these are the tastes. These are the reasons God gives for why we do the mitzvah, but ultimately we can't understand why we do them. And that really is the meaning of what Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi is saying. By the way, I had to include very few mitzvahs, positive mitzvahs in the Torah have a reason for, have a reward connected to them. Very few of them say, if you do this, you'll get this. Very, very few. And that's largely because we don't want to be like reward seekers. We don't want to only do the mitzvahs because we're going to get some reward in the next world, or in this world for that matter. So the Torah doesn't tell us the rewards for the mitzvahs, except for a few. And I bring them up because one is easy and it doesn't bring up any inner tension with us, which, by the way, the way we define easy or hard for mitzvahs is if it creates inner tension. If we have like a free will tension, part of me wants to do this, and part of me, like I want to speak negatively about someone, but I know it's not allowed, so I have a tension. The mitzvah of Lashon Hara is one of the hardest mitzvot of all. Why? Because we're fighting within ourselves. So in the first mitzvah, it's called Shluach HaKen. It's called rescuing, sending off the mother bird. If you chance to find a bird's nest on the road, in a tree, or on the ground with young ones or eggs, you shall not take the mother with the young. You shall surely let the mother go. The young you may take for yourself. Now, I don't think many of us have the opportunity to do this mitzvah, but the point is, it's not a hard mitzvah to do at all. And in another place in the Torah, it says, Kaved asavicha v'et imecha, honor your father and mother. Now, the reason I bring up these two mitzvahs that don't seem to have anything to do with each other is they're some of the only mitzvahs in the Torah that actually have rewards connected to them. If you do this, then you'll get this. You see that very rarely in the Torah. And the reward for shooing away the mother bird, and the reward for honoring your father and mother, which is a very, very difficult mitzvah. I mean, there are people that don't have a hard time with this mitzvah, but there are people who struggle mightily with this mitzvah because they were raised in complicated ways. And it's hard to really consistently and constantly honor a parent with whom you have conflicted feelings. So it is not an easy mitzvah. And even when you have a very straightforward relationship with your parent, it's still a very exacting mitzvah, and often creates inner tension within us. And yet the mitzvah, the reward that the Torah gives, is the same reward, so that your days may be long. The reason I bring this up is we have to wean ourselves of A, the idea of a mitzvah as a ritual, and B, we have to wean ourselves from applying like human definitions of big and small to any mitzvahs. Rather, we have to see the mitzvahs as a holistic, integrated system. While we may not be able to do something I might not be ready to keep Shabbat, but I recognize that Shabbat is part of an integrated system that God gave the Jewish people so that they can forge a relationship with him. And so that's really the idea here, is that, the mitzvahs, there are 613 mitzvahs. There's 248 positive mitzvot. There are 365 negative mitzvot, thou shalt not, right? And they're likened, or they're almost metaphorically connected to the 248 organs in the body, whatever that means, and the 365 sinews in the body, whatever that means. But the reason I bring it up is because you wouldn't say that your lung is more important than your kidney. And you understand that everything in your body exists as an integrated whole. And this concept that the mitzvahs are like the parts of the body, that we need every part of our body to function. We need every mitzvah to function and thrive as a Jewish people. So as Rebbe says, be very, very careful with minor mitzvahs, small mitzvahs, as with a major one. You really can't say that one is big and one is small. And he goes on. Consider, I'll read it in Hebrew. Okay. V'hevi machashev hefsed mitzvah keneged sachra u'schar avera keneged hafseda. So that means consider the loss incurred for performing a mitzvah compared to its reward, and consider the reward received for sinning compared to the loss. Even if you're not looking at this religiously, let's look at it from an entirely non-religious perspective for a minute. And I'm going to put different words in for it. Consider the loss incurred for performing something hard but incredibly important to you, compared to the reward for doing something that's hard but very important to you. And consider the reward you receive for doing something that's fun and instantly gratifying but isn't good for you, compared to the loss you're going to experience for doing something that's fun and instantly gratifying that isn't good for you. Okay, that was very long-winded, but let's take it from a non-religious perspective for a second. Let's say you want to write a book. Consider the loss incurred for writing 4 pages a day compared to its reward. So what do you lose? Well, you lose some free time in the morning, and you lose a sense of just like chilling out, compared to the reward that you're writing your book every day, 4 more pages. Consider the reward for not writing your book. Well, I get to just procrastinate and chill and watch Netflix, right? Compared to the loss of not writing. I've lost my self-esteem. I've lost my sense of meeting my goals. I've lost my ability to believe that I can write a book. I've lost the very book itself. So this is just one of the great truths of life, that whatever is easy and instantly gratifying tastes wonderful at that moment, but ultimately it leaves us feeling lacking and low on ourselves. Whereas doing whatever is hard but is good for us hurts a little bit at that moment, but builds our sense of self-worth incomparably, immeasurably. This is just a truth about life. You want to insert, I hate giving food examples, but it's such an obvious one. I know I've made the point already, but it's just such a fundamental point. Consider the loss for eating really healthy that day compared to its reward, and the reward for eating like total garbage, compared to the loss of eating total garbage. So in one case, the loss is the loss for eating healthy is you didn't eat all the yummy stuff, all that cake that's sitting in the refrigerator, you didn't eat it. Compared to its reward, you have a sense of healthiness. I hate using food as an example, but it's still just very illustrative. It's simple. You feel healthy, you feel good, right? Whatever. And then think about the reward received for eating the cake. It's super yummy, but it slides down your throat in 1 second and then it's gone, compared to the loss. A sense of losing control, and on and on and on. This is just always true. But when you insert the mitzvahs, it's very important, and everybody should kind of apply this to where they are in their own journey, which is, what am I what am I losing when, let's say, like, I want to grow Jewishly. I really do. I want to grow Jewishly. Maybe I want to grow a little bit with Shabbat observance. Maybe I want to grow a little bit with giving tzedakah. Maybe I want to grow a little bit in kosher, whatever it is. What do I lose when I do it? Well, I can't eat everything I want. I mean, that's real. I can't just like eat anything and everything that I want compared to its reward. Okay, so let's get clear about, there's two forms of reward when it comes to the mitzvot, right? Or we can give an interpersonal mitzvah, visiting someone in the hospital before COVID. Remember those days when you could visit a sick person in the hospital? What do I lose when I visit my aunt who's sick in the hospital? Well, I kind of lose the whole morning. I have to schlep and I get caught in traffic on the Edens, getting downtown. I don't know, right? Compared to its reward, there's two forms of reward in Judaism. There's the next world and there's reward in this world. So reward in the next world is a very fundamental concept in Judaism. It is one of the 13 principles of faith that the real reward is undescribable. It's a spiritual reward. It's not comparable. It's not the same currency as reward in this world. Reward in the next world is eternal. It's permanent. It's a permanent spiritual connection to our source that we can't understand or use language to wrap our heads around, but it is eternal and forever. And I guess some form of bliss, but bliss is such a funny word. It's kind of like such a new agey word. But the idea that it's an indescribable spiritual eternal mitzvah. So, okay, you lost the afternoon, you slept on the Edens, and it was freezing, and you had to like park, and you had to run into the hospital, but the next world reward, no words, eternal, permanent, cleaving to our source, no, like a level of permanence and spirituality that we can't know, we can't describe. And then reward in this world, we feel good about ourselves. When we visit our aunt in the hospital, we feel we did the right thing. We helped her. We see our own, we see like, it's a sense of oneself as a giver and giving to somebody and giving her that joy. There's reward in the next world. There's reward in this world. Okay, so you lost the morning, you slept in the Edens and it was freezing in the parking lot, versus indescribable, permanent spiritual reward that we can't describe, and a feeling of oneself as a true giver and truly meeting someone where they really need. What's the cheshbon, as we say in Hebrew? Like, what's the cheshbon? What's the you can't compare the two. And what's the reward received for let's give another one. What's a reward received for sinning? Okay, we're speaking negatively about someone. The reward is like a delicious feeling at that moment. You're sort of like in this intense conversation with your friend and you're sort of getting a thrill at that moment. Compared to the loss, what's the loss? Remember, just like there's reward in the next world and there's reward in this world, there's loss in the next world, there's loss in this world. Loss in the next world is that it chips away. It creates almost like a barrier, like a plaque. I think of like dental plaque, like that you have, it creates sort of like a coating or a barrier between you and your creator, a wedge. It creates a certain darkness. And once the thrill is gone, once the like immediate gratification has been met, you don't feel like your sense of yourself as good and kind, it evaporates. So what Rebbe is saying is a very powerful thing. And Julie, just go down a bit, please. So, so Rebbe's saying something very foundational, which is life is filled with temptation. Life is filled with potential for immediate gratification, and all the more so today. I mean, forget it. He lived 2,000 years ago. Imagine what we're dealing with today. And the rewards for not partaking, or the rewards for making the right choice, often seem distant and abstract. So I do believe that even though the ultimate reward is in the world to come after we die, I think God gives us an incentive in this world. Meaning, when I give tzedakah, when I visit my aunt in the hospital, when I hold back from speaking negatively about someone, I feel like a better person. So he gives us almost like a this world incentive. So we're motivated to do it. If there were no reward in this world, the rewards of good choices in the next world are just too distant. They're too abstract. It is very hard to think seriously about the next world, even when you're a believer in the world to come, even when you are a religious Jew who studies and believes that this world is the world for doing the mitzvahs, the next world is for reaping the benefits of the mitzvahs in ways that we can't describe. It still seems super distant and abstract. And so God gives us a feeling of well-being, an enormous feeling of well-being when we do the right thing. And that motivates us for the choice, which ultimately is rewarded in the world to come. So the real reward is in the world to come. And so there's like what's called like praiseworthy selfishness, which really means like, I understand that my neshama, my soul, benefits so profoundly from right actions, from doing the right thing. And conversely, it gets very hurt from doing the wrong thing. It creates wedge with my creator. But God doesn't leave it at some abstract next world. It is very clear that because we're created to perfect ourselves so that we can ultimately cleave to God in the next world, there has to be a motivation to do it in the here and now. We're here and now people. And so when we give tzedakah, when we visit the sick, when we have guests, when we help people in need, when we do the right thing, we reap the benefits in this world. And that's what Rabbi Goldson is saying here when he says, you really, even though the real truth, the olam ha'emet, the world of truth, is the world to come. And this is a very, very important point because the Talmud tells us, I think in Tractate Pesachim, that this is an olam hafuch. It's an upside down world. Now, what does upside down mean? Upside down doesn't mean like it's a mixed up world. Like right now, our eyes are all on Ukraine and we're thinking this is such a messed up world. This is such an incredibly messed up world. But the Gemara isn't, the Talmud's not saying it's a messed up world. It's saying it's an upside down world. Lahefech, hafuch means upside down. And what that means is what looks right is often wrong. What looks wrong is often right. Some of the people that seem to benefit the most in this world are the ones that are on the lowest level, and some of the lowest people are on the highest level. Everything in this world, we see things upside down, but in the world to come, which is called the world of truth, we will see things right side up. But God doesn't leave it there. He leaves us with the experience of pleasure and self-esteem and well-being when we do the right thing in this world, so that ultimately we will be motivated to live well in this world. Rabbi Goldson says, you don't have to be fixated on the world to come to appreciate the value of a good deed. Consider the benefit of our actions on others, the practical and psychological comfort we provide others through acts of kindness and charity, the support we give our neighbors through community involvement, the ripple effect of a single action as it inspires each recipient to do unto others as has been done unto him, and the sense of satisfaction we take away from each act of virtue and self-discipline, right? Not only with other people, but when we hold back, when we refrain, we have a sense of goodness and self-discipline. Are these not worth far more than any expenditure of time, energy, and money? In short, the reward of a good life is a good life. Choose life, declares the Torah, and you will live well in both this world and the next. And that's what it means, Bacharta b'chaim, choose life. Because when you choose the good path, you receive reward in this world, you receive reward in the next world. Okay, we're going to move on, and then we're going to open it up to the group. And he finishes. Okay, this is, you might have heard this before. This is very, very famous. Da malamala mimcha. Oh, sorry. Histakel b'shlosh dvarim ve'ena tabo lidei avera. This is very important. Reflect on 3 things, and you won't fall into transgression, into the clutches of sin. Now, that sounds very Christian, the clutches of sin, but we have to understand something. What did he say before? You have to know that what's not good for you tastes delicious at that moment. That's the nature of sin. The nature of doing things, whatever's not good for us, tastes yummier, right? It's more delicious. It's more fun. It's Netflix for 3 hours. It's combing through Facebook. It's just comfortable. It's like numbing yourself. It feels immediately gratifying, but afterwards, you're not going to feel good about yourself. All the more so, not just with wasting time, but doing the wrong thing. Think about when you speak negatively about someone. At that moment, it's like you're almost buzzing. You have to get this out. You're close with the other person. You're forming a bond with another person about somebody else. We have all sorts of reasons for doing it, but afterwards, we only feel like worse about ourselves in this world. So that's the nature of the loss of fulfilling a mitzvah, fulfilling a mitzvah mantel vis-a-vis its reward versus the benefit of a sin, like the immediate gratification versus the ultimate loss. And then he says, transgression, temptation, gratification, they're powerful, powerful things. And as human beings, we have an enormous, enormous, enormous ability to rationalize, right? We've said Lori Palatnik's famous comment on the word rationalize a million times, but it's so brilliant. Rational lies. And what that means is never, ever underestimate that when you want something, you can distort and manipulate truth to fit whatever it is you want. If you want to drink, you're gonna rationalize your decision to take a drink. If you want to gamble, you're gonna rationalize gambling. If you want to say something unkind about someone, you're gonna rationalize it. Whatever you want, you'll distort reality so that you've paved the way for it to be okay. We are unbelievable at that. That's how we function. So Rebbe says, that's how we are. Reflect on 3 things and you will not fall into this. Okay, tell us what it is. Da malamala mimcha. Know what's above you. Know what's above you. I read in our book that there was a psychological experiment where, I don't really know what this means, but they had a vending machine and you're supposed to put money, I can't remember what it said, but maybe it was like an honor system or something where you put in money and they drew these like big eyes. I don't know. I don't really understand this psychological experiment. You can read it in this book, but when a person felt like they were being watched, they gave the money in the honor system or something like that. I don't think I'm saying it exactly right. But the bottom line is there are so many things we do because nobody's watching. Let's be real. If you're married or you have a partner or whatever, there's a lot of things you would not do in front of them. that you'll do in the privacy of your own world. That's because we allow ourselves to experience the illusion that God doesn't see. And so we do a lot of things, and we actually do tshuva for this on Yom Kippur. It's one of the things that we do vidui for, is being more afraid of man than God. You know, there are so many things we would never do in front of somebody else, but we'll do it when we're alone. And so why is that? Because really the truth is we don't allow ourselves to admit, to acknowledge that there's an eye that sees, that God's eye sees. By the way, being Jewish, we've learned the word Yehudim means Jewish. Yahadut is Judaism. And it comes from the word todah, thank. But the word lahodot, or the root of this word, is two things. It's lahodot, it's todah, but it's also, like you say, moda ani lefanecha, in the morning. So that means I thank you, God. But it also means I admit it. I acknowledge so moda ani does not just mean thank you, God, thank you so much for all my awesome things, thank you so much. It does. It's gratitude, starting the day with gratitude. But it's also, I admit the truth. I acknowledge the truth. As a Jew, the very raison d'etre of my existence is to not live with my head in the sand. I admit it. I admit that there's an eye that sees. And I admit that when I sin, and because nobody's looking, it's because I'm momentarily like a little bit insane, where I just don't want to acknowledge mala mimeni. What's above me, with the eye that sees. I don't want to admit it. So Rebbe is saying, if you want to live a good life, because it really doesn't make sense. When we sin, it tastes great for a second, and then we feel miserable. And our neshama, our soul, is tainted in an eternal way. Yes, we can do tshuva, there's always a part of us that's pure, but it creates a wedge between us. It's serious business, but we forget about it. We're like, oh, just leave me alone. I don't want to think about that stuff. I just want what I want, right? I just want what I want. We kind of lose sanity. He's saying, how do you get sane again? You've got to know what's above you. Ayin roa. Ba'ozen shamat. Ayin roa. Ba'ozen shomat. And an ear that hears. B'kol ma'asecha b'sefer nichtavim. And everything you do is written in a book. So it is very important to understand that God is not a vindictive God, God forbid. And we can always do tshuva. And there's a part of us that remains pure all the time. But it's also very important to admit that our bad actions don't just fly out into cyberland. They don't just fizzle away. They remain unless we do something about it, unless we do tshuva for them. And then we affect permanent change, where we wipe it clean from our book through active conscious tshuva. But part of tshuva is not doing that thing again. So the reason I'm saying this is because he's telling you how to live real. We don't really want to live real. We kind of want to live in la la land, and we basically want to do what we want to do and not surface the fact that bad decisions don't just go away. You know, the other day I said something negative. I really said something very negative about someone. And I felt so bad, but I didn't have the inner strength to do tshuva with her. Don't forget that when it comes to tshuva between you and another person, it's not just between you and God. You also have to tell the person, you know, I'm very sorry. I think I might have said something that hurt you, and I want to tell you I'm sorry. You actually have to go to the person. Well, I didn't have the courage to do it. so I found myself, and I really spoke negatively about someone. So I found myself just saying like, oh, whatever. it'll go away somehow. It'll just go away. And it doesn't go away. Shuva makes things go away. But what Rebbe is saying here is the nature of reality is that we have a tremendous desire to do what's not good for us. We have little resolve to do what's ultimately good for us. And so, but because we have tremendous potential in this world, we really need to meditate on the fact that our decisions have ramifications, that things don't just go away. And so the more we can, before the moment that we just want to do what we want to do and follow our drives and our desires, if we could just say like, what am I getting from this versus what I'm losing? If I hold back, what am I getting versus what am I losing? And what does it mean to know that what I do actually matters and has permanent consequence? And how can that help me make the best decisions? So that's the first Mishnah. I think we can open it up now. It's really very, very significant wisdom for living. It's not easy, but it's powerful wisdom for living. Does anybody have thoughts about any of the points that Rebbe makes here?
This may be a little bit of a side, but I totally didn't understand that first Mishnah about the mother and the child when the egg is on the road. What was that about?
It's an obscure mitzvah. It's a seemingly tiny mitzvah in the Torah. It's called Shaloach Haken. It means it's like, I know, Stephen, you're like, what? Like, what's that? The reason I brought it up, it's an obscure mitzvah in the Torah. The reason I brought it up is because it's seemingly very small. And then you have Kavod es avicha v'yasimecha, honor your father and mother, which is obviously very big and not easy to do all the time. And they are given the same reward in the Torah. Just meaning to say, like, we can't know what's big and small. Like Shaloach HaKain just seems so darn small. Like, and honoring your father and mother is so big.
I understand why you mentioned it. I just trying to understand what it means. I just don't understand what it means.
It's that you never take the mother with the babies, but I don't even really know like the real implications of the mitzvah. Sorry, that's what you were asking. I don't know. Yeah, weird. I don't know.
Okay, well, I have another question. And this also is a little bit of an aside. I find that these Mishnahs that we're learning actually have a lot of application, not only in my life, but in the life of other people, including my clients. And I want to say, well, I'm studying Jewish thought, and I just learned about a Mishnah today about the importance of having a teacher, having a rabbi, as well as having a friend. I would have loved to have said that today to a client, but I didn't know how to say that. How do I say that without saying I'm studying, Jewish thought and Mishnah? Nobody knows what a Mishnah is. How do I share this information?
Wait, hold on. I'm going to open that question up to the group. But you're asking, like, how can I kind of show Jewish wisdom to people without it being too like particularist, like very specifically Jewish? Is that what you're saying?
Well, without actually saying that it's a Mishnah that I learned about, because nobody knows what a Mishnah is. I want to share this information, and my inclination is to cite the source, of course. And I don't know how to do it in an easy way without creating another conversation, which is going to take me in a different direction.
I think you can use the words Jewish tradition. I'm learning, although the word tradition is a little bit like ritual and ceremony. I don't really like the word, but Jewish tradition tells us, or I'm learning in my class on Jewish tradition, like the tradition of Judaism, we learn from it that, I don't know, is that, does anyone else have a comment?
How about just in my Jewish studies? And then you're not saying it's a tradition or a mitzvah or in the Mishnah. You're just
Or
saying
principles
in my
that you're-
Jewish studies.
Yeah, or
Jewish
principles that
philosophy.
you're following, that you're living your life by, that you're learning, that, maybe principles, no? Value, I mean,
I
it's more
usually
than a
say
value.
something like Jewish philosophy.
Jewish philosophy, that sounds pretty neutral.
Hopefully.
Jewish study, I like that.
In other words,
Which one do you
everyone
like,
has a
Stephen?
philosophy. What? Here's mine.
Right, which one did you like, Stephen? Which spoke to you?
Oh, I like Sue's. I think it's Jewish studies. But does anyone
Jewish
else have
studies.
this problem? Or is it just my problem?
Anyone else have this problem?
I don't know that it's a problem. This happened last week. We were at someone's house playing canasta in her party room, and we had to go on the elevator to go out, and she was coming with us. And I said to her, oh, are you walking us out? And she said, yes. And I said, she's not Jewish. I said, that is so Jewish. It's in the Torah to escort your guests out. And I mean, it was just sort of not a flippant comment, but very laid back. And she really liked it.
Yeah,
So,
I bet she did.
yeah.
Rebbetzin Faggy says something a little similar to what Sue just said. She said, you're a lot more religious than you think. People say, oh, you're religious. I'm not religious. Well, like to Sue's point, here's this person who goes out of their way to walk someone, out. The point is we do so many mitzvahs that we don't even necessarily label them as such or relate to them as such, but we're more religious than we think. That's what she always says. Yeah, Linda, hi.
Hi, yeah, Stephen, I have a question. Can you please explain again your thoughts behind how you wish to introduce whatever you want to introduce? Is the purpose to appeal to a universality and not have it being pigeoned to one particular culture that your clients
I
might
thought.
not
That's what I thought.
participate in?
Yeah, that's what I thought he was talking about.
Well, I don't know actually if that's the case necessarily, but I will say that I think that's the reason that I've dealt. It's the reason that I'm here, because I appreciate how the ageless wisdom, I guess, at time applies not only to today but to everybody. But no, I don't mind saying that it's Jewish if that's what you're asking. I think maybe Mishnah maybe is a little bit of a problem, a little bit of a hang up that I have. I don't know. I'm just finding I haven't found an easy way to share this with people who are not studying with me and, just in casual conversation.
I have a
Or
question.
not so casual conversation. I mean, actually, I was with a client today, and I wanted to share with a client because I felt that it was very, very relevant to some of the things that he was experiencing and telling me.
What about
So
the
I actually wanted to use it as an affirmation.
What about the phrase that you just used? Ageless wisdom.
I guess. I'll let him know that I've been cavorting with the sages from times gone by.
Timeless right. Wisdom of the sages. Wisdom of the sages. Yeah.
Right,
Who
the
was that,
wisdom of the
Nadine?
sages.
I can't. Oh, Donna. Yeah.
I mean, these are lessons of our fathers. Principle came to mind right away because my Jewish friends, I talk about my Jewish studies in my class, but I don't always want to bring it up from that perspective or not. And not in a business situation, I don't know. But are these principles, they're more than values, they're more, what do you call lessons that I've learned? Like I'm how do you describe?
I
that part
think
of it?
I think it's fair to call it the collected wisdom of the sages, because really that is really what it is. It's that Rebbe Yehuda Hanassi collected the aphorisms. That's what, well, also, but who says the word aphorism? It's such an academic-y word, but collected the wisdom through in the transmission around a certain period of Jewish history and codified it in the form of the Mishnah. So it's the collected wisdom of the sages. But however you want to say it, they're yeah. I mean, I think what we can acknowledge. This isn't what you said, Stephen, but I think it's important to understand that Judaism is particularist and universal at the same time. That it's particularist in that there's a lot that's uniquely Jewish about being Jewish. The non-Jewish world doesn't have a mitzvah of keeping kosher, of keeping the specific mitzvot of the Torah. So in a big way, it's a very particularist religion, particular to a certain people, the Jewish people. But at the same time, so much of its wisdom is absolutely universal. You don't have to be Jewish. You don't. It applies to the human condition. Think about what we were saying today. When we brought a particularist idea of sin, of transgression versus mitzvah, but you can pull it out and say, like, anytime you do something that's not good for you, it's always more instantly gratifying. These are, but we feel less than after we do it, you know. And then the opposite is true when we do the right thing. So these are universal. This is universal wisdom for all of humanity. Don't forget, God chooses the Jewish people, but creates all people in his image. Every single human being in this world is beloved to the one who created them. Everybody has intrinsic and absolute value. Everyone is created in the image of God. And the Jewish people are given the responsibility of being the bearers of a particularist Torah throughout the ages. But everybody's created in the image of God, and everyone can benefit from the wisdom of Judaism. There's a Judaism for everyone, and then there's a particularist Judaism, and they're both true. They're both true. So at the same time, which isn't what you were asking.
Well, let's say, Ellie, you're a life coach and you have a client who's, telling you about how she had a realization. The realization came about as a result of talking to a close friend of hers. She's too close to the forest to see the trees, but her friend was able to highlight something, led her to see something in a new way. She had an aha moment. I mean, that's the mission about the importance of having a friend, of having a teacher, right? So what do you say to her?
It's hard when you're a coach. It's not the best question because, as a coach, there are,
Or you're not a coach, you're a consultant. You're a consultant. So
you're you basically. Just say it. You're trying to figure out your own situation.
Free
You're
advice.
saying, so here you hear something and you're thinking, wow, that's exactly what I learned, but I don't necessarily, but do I share? Is that what, I think this is the crux of the issue for you. What do I share? But Stephen, you have a beautiful way of delicately, subtly, you more than almost anyone I know, has an incredible way of subtly enriching someone's insights with a deeper perspective. You know how to do it. I know you do because you've done it with me too. It's just, wow, there's really some wisdom there on the importance of a friend or whatever. I think you have the answers. I really think
all right,
you're a master. You're a master of that. Just don't use the word Mishnah. They'll look at you with cross eyes. What? That's one of the great things about living in Israel. I always felt so self-conscious being so particularist, like looking so Jewish. And here it's universal. Being particularist is universal. You don't have to feel self-conscious wearing a yarmulke or, you know.
So the answer to my question is move to Israel.
Yeah, well, at least visit, Stephen. Gosh darn it, I told you. I dropped so many hints. At least visit.
I will.
Might not be able to move, but you can visit. Yeah, yes. In the meantime, they're preparing for a huge influx of Jewish Ukrainian refugees. So they're building, I mean, they're literally preparing for, I just learned how many Jews are in Ukraine and I forgot the number, but it's not small. It's not
300.
small. Is that what you heard? What'd you hear, Nadine?
300,000.
Did you hear that?
Huge.
Wait, hold on. Is that right? Did you hear that? Where'd you hear that?
On a news report.
300,000. That's a lot.
And they have
Yeah.
the largest in the world, Chabad house.
Chabad. I read
Not
that.
only is it the largest, but have you seen a picture? It's shaped like a menorah.
Yeah,
Yes.
gorgeous.
It's beautiful. They have this in like, is it in Kharkiv, the
Yeah.
second largest city? That's
Yeah.
where they got majorly bombed. Right.
Yes.
I think it's in that city, but I'm not sure. It's the largest Chabad house in the world, but it's also shaped like a menorah. So they have like all these different functions. There's a synagogue, there's a old age home, there's a
It's a Jewish
School.
center. It's not, yeah.
there's a Jewish center, and each part of the menorah is like, I think like another function for the Jewish community. Yeah, but that's the nature of Jewish history. I mean, I just want to say, I mean, we'll see what's going to happen. It's a very unstable time, but I do just want you to see what happens in Jewish history is that yet another demographic is no longer safe in its host country. It's very important to understand like that now Israel has more than half of all the Jews, and it started, modern Israel started with 30,000 or less, and now it's over 7 million. And so we're seeing that the Jewish world is coming home to the land of Israel, which was prophesied in the Torah, but you literally see it with your own eyes. Like now we're seeing that another massive wave of Jewish people are coming to the land of Israel as prophesied in the Torah. Why? Because they're not safe in their host country. So it's called kibbutz galios, the ingathering of the exiles. And you see it in real time with your own eyes. It's just insane. It's remarkable. I mean, today I saw photographs of they're building these like high quality prefabricated apartment buildings or whatever for like a massive wave of Ukrainian Jewish immigrants. It's an unbelievable thing.
I just read that Ukraine is the only country other than Israel that, at least for a while, had a Jewish president and
Yes.
prime minister.
And prime minister. That's right. I read that too. Yeah, Adrian, hi.
Hi, according to Rabbi Google, there are about 350,000 Jews in the Ukraine.
That's a lot. That's a real lot. It's a crazy amount. Yeah. So we will see. We all have to pray for the state of the world. It's very, very unstable.
Why would Russians kill Russians?
It's horrible.
Their own people. This is what I don't understand. Why don't they just try and
I
get
don't
rid of,
know.
if they can get rid of bin Laden, why can't they get rid of Putin?
It's insane. It's just terrible. Let's hope for better news. Let's hope when we meet again next week, it's
Settled.
better news. It's really very unsettling.
Russian citizens are demonstrating
Yes.
against the action in Ukraine, which is significant.
Yeah, they're
And-
also getting in loads of trouble.
Right.
Yes,
everywhere people are demonstrating.
Right.
yeah. But in Russia, you're really taking a risk.
Mhm, for sure.
And in Switzerland, they are closing down Russian accounts and for the first time ever have defied their position of financial neutrality.
Wow. Wow. That's a big
Putin
deal.
is screwed.
Stop their vodka processing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, I think even the oligarchs are a little PO'd right now because they're going down.
Mhm.
All right, guys.
All right, Al, thank you.
Praying for better news.
Yes.
Sending love
for
to everybody.
sure. Say hi
Very
to the
nice to
cone,
meet
Hi, everybody.
you.
Allie, if
Wow.
you see the cone, send my love.
I will. I'll send love from
Yeah, and
Carlisle.
from Lydia and
From
Bob.
Carlisle. Yeah.
Yeah, right, from Carlisle and Kings Cove. Okay, bye.